Alrighty, today I'm just going to go over some of the games that happened in the recent 2023 World Championship for Racing Kings. This was in the very first round for the double elimination bracket. I just highlighted the 9 best games that I picked from this round that were interesting. If you'd like to see the results of every single match, you can go ahead and look at the bracket in the description. There will also be links to all the information for the actual championship going on down. Without further ado, here is the first game that I'm going to highlight. It was between the number 1 seeded RoyalManiac, who is the first player in Modern Time to reach 2600 rating in Racing Kings. He was going up against Matusayayim. He's not a fairly known player, but he is at decent strength, definitely a 2K to 2100 level strength. And he's a newer player, so the lines that he plays, not really known as much. This game, Matusayayim does have the white pieces, as a knight takes c2. After this one, RoyalManiac responds with the bubble walk line with king b3. And just to clarify this game, there's not really anything wow or surprising in this game. This is just to demonstrate RoyalManiac's pure dominant materialistic play that has been dominating Racing Kings. For almost the entire time Racing Kings had a world championship. The last 2 years, obviously, RoyalManiac did not win, but he has still dominated in the background outside of the World Championship, and he's finally coming back to try to regain his title. Here, bishop d4 going into standard line, king c4, and rook g8, all standard stuff. Queen a3, and this is the first, bishop takes b2, bishop takes b2, and then after bishop g2, it's the first slight deviation from standard lines here. Usually you just go rook g3, something to that effect, to try to advance your king. Maybe you bring the rook up and defend the 5th rank. It's not necessarily so straightforward with this one. But then knight f2 was played, which really is just a crushing move here. It attacks a trapped queen. You can't go king g3 to defend it, so you're just losing your queen at this point. I don't know, maybe rook takes here, and after the queen takes, you're down. You have 2 rooks for a queen. It's not as bad, but playing knight c to d4 was the first big blunder of the game. And this is where RoyalManiac just starts to go for material here. So as you notice that RoyalManiac is actually down material here, having only 1 major piece, compared to equal minor pieces. 1 rook, my bad. And so 2 major pieces compared to a rook. So he's just a rook down for 2 ranks. Obviously takes the queen. And taking back here is an interesting choice. Obviously, I'd trade the rook so you at least have some initiative. The knight's not really doing anything there on h1. But rook takes g1 is played, and then a small inaccuracy here. You'd either want to go king takes g1 or rook takes g1 to fight more so that your rook and king are at least lined up. Not that it mattered so much, but knight takes g1 is just kind of a silly move. You're hanging a knight here. Obviously, bishop takes, bishop f3, and advances the king because it's not a free piece. But then here, king g3 loses another piece. It could just be a trade if you trade back, but then it's pinned and not very happy. And black's just got an easy walk up. Knight takes f3, so the white king tries to advance, saying, hey, you can take my knight, and I can advance still, and we're in equal ranks. But it doesn't work. You have a rook for a queen, a bishop, and a knight. And RoyalManiac's materialistic mindset here in his play just goes on to dominate. King g5 and just pure masterclass of an endgame here. No mistakes from Roy. Just easy win there. This wasn't to decide the series. I believe this set Roy up 4-0 at the time. Roy went on to sweep the series with a draw in the last game, so 5.5 to half. The next game I'm going to highlight is between the 16th seeded sriramprasad, who is also the 2020 Racing Kings World Championship runner-up. He's going up into a47. These two are probably equally matched if they were to play in their prime, but obviously neither of them are in their prime now. So they are fighting for, I believe, a rematch with RoyalManiac. I'm not sure if A47 ever played RoyalManiac at the Racing Kings World Championship, but two really good players who are coming back into the spotlight here. With Bishop D4, sriramprasad opens with the white pieces. Usually his opening, he goes Bishop D4. The response is usually Bishop E4, and it goes into the symmetry line with Queen H6, Queen A6, and he's known for playing that Rook G6, which is the theory line that most players don't go into, just because you do end up losing a rook for basically board domination. So it's an interesting line. It was played to this point, Queen H6, but instead A47 goes Queen A8, which is a little bit tougher because Rook G7, the line for white that the computer says is good, is tough to play against. Rook G5 is the only line that actually, if you play perfectly, is comfortable for black. Rook to B7 here is also fine. It's the most common line played actually, and then you trade off the rooks. And then white just has bishop g2. King d5 was played though, which is not very good for black because you're down major piece development, and your king just kind of is separated from the pieces. This bishop's not getting involved. This bishop's not very comfortable. Now that you unpin this, is all they have to do is get the bishop involved, and then they win your bishop. So it's not the best course of action, but it is a tricky line. Rook 1 to g6 was played, which is an odd move. I believe you do just have something like bishop g2, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. Rook b8 is played, and then white obviously just has two dominating moves. I think rook 1 to b7 is something that could have been better. I believe you can also play bishop a3 there, but now just rook e8, allowing an easy advance to the f6 square for the king that is virtually unstoppable, or just an immediate king g5, allowing the king to advance. Is just better for white. It's not necessarily winning, but it's definitely better. Bishop g2 was the alternative played, pinning the bishop, and it's just a complete equal position from here. With bishop a3, knight g3, attacking the bishop, and then they trade. Now knight takes g2 was played, allowing black to actually come back. So you didn't want to take here. I believe just king f5 there immediately was better because then the bishop's completely out of play. Has no good squares to come back to get into play. So king f5, and then you can always take back later to get this knight involved if you want. But rook 1 to b7 here is the only better move here for black. And the idea here is that this rook has no comfortable square. So I'll just show a line. So if you just leave this rook here, and let's say you just ignore it and you go ahead and advance your king, well, now you're trading off. Either way you take, which obviously having your king coordinate with the rook is probably slightly better, and the queen also coordinates with the bishop. Well, now black can go ahead and just advance. And they come here, and black's obviously got a little bit better here, and your pieces are involved, but obviously you have knight f5 taking the bishop at some point. The bishop can obviously move though. So it's a bad position for white if you leave that and trade. Even if you come here, then the queen's even worse. Sure, you get the queen on this side and you get your advance, and the queen's back, but then black has just a better position, can swing the bishop down to b2, trade the bishops off, and then it's a little bit of an icky situation for white. Although that one probably is an easier line to play for white. But rook b1 to b7 was played. Knight f3, which is a completely fine move, just misses the opportunity for advantage. Knight c4 also plays a tricky part, just you do have king f5 immediately. But knight f3 doesn't really do much except get the knight involved, attack the bishop, but king f5 stops that. And then bishop d6 is a blow. But knight e4 was played by white, and this actually gives up the opportunity for black to come back here. Uh, Basically anything to save this bishop here, defending it with this, defending it with the queen to a3, or even bringing the bishop to f8 and attacking the major pieces. Any of those ideas are fine for black. But king c6 was played, and now the knight just takes the bishop. Well, you might be wondering, well, yes, black has rook 1 to b7, but here The killer move that wins here for sriramprasad that you miss is actually king to e6. It's such a lethal move because the bishop here covers the b6 square, so the king can't slide over. The knight covers the b7 square, so the rook can't simply slide to c7. And the rook cannot simply slide to d7 because now the king and the rook will come here to take on d7. So black is actually out of moves, is the surprising thing here. You could maybe leave that rook there and try to sacrifice something, but it's not going to work because then white's just going to develop their major pieces. Maybe get their knights involved more. I mean, taking with a knight here afterwards isn't so bad either. King e6 is a killer move that tough to spot in the moment. Rook takes b7 was played instead, and then rook takes b7, and it is actually drawing here. Queen f8 was indeed played, and then rook to d7, and then rook to g7 was played. And this is actually a very tricky situation because only one move draws here for black. I already highlighted it. It's a puzzle that sriramprasad posted himself. But yes, rook takes d6, and you hold on here. You basically be able to shuffle until you get a draw opportunity. If you allow the king advance, it's basically over, which was what happened. Queen a6, king f6, king c7, and because you have this killer move of bishop a7 eventually cutting, and the knights just cutting off these important squares for black. Very good knight involvement here. This line d6 was very crucial. Rook to e7 was played, queen c8, and bishop a7, king takes d6, and it's already over. Very classy play from sriramprasad. This wasn't the killer game. I believe this puts him up 5-1 in the series, but it puts sriramprasad in a very good position. He played very well this series against A47, and we do get to see a 2020 Racing Kings World Championship rematch with RoyalManiac and sriramprasad, and I hope I'm able to stream that one. That one's going to be a very, very exciting game to watch. Game number 3 would be FC Manchester City versus QPW is a very strong player. Needs a lot of time because he's newer to the game, but obviously for someone who doesn't know a lot of theory, he's a very tricky player. FC Manchester City has been someone known to. He's been a very challenging opponent in the Racing Kings World Championship. And he continues here. This unfortunately wasn't the best game to highlight from them. FC Manchester City did win the series pretty convincingly, but it was just a game that I wanted to highlight. King d3, knight takes f2, all standard stuff up to here, and then bishop b4. Bishop g2 is actually not a very good line for white because you don't have this bishop here that's this strong diagonal. After king b4, rook takes d2, bishop takes g2, all standard stuff. Queen takes g2. Just the king b5, king a6 idea is pretty strong. Sure, the major pieces aren't involved yet, and white will be up a knight. But black will have an advantage here, and if they can hold on to it, it's actually completely winning. But rook takes c1 was played, and now rook to d5 and rook to c5, completely drawn situation here. King f5, and king b5 here is actually drawing for black. Just continues the equal position here. Your queen still got a7, a8, so there really was no need to put your queen on d4, where it's completely useless now. Queen to g7, and this actually gives opportunity for the black's queen to come into action. If you just trade off the queens here, black is fine, and then there's a simple rook draw and endgame. The knight sure can be some hassle coming to d3, but after that, really nothing more. So the idea here is after queen takes, rook takes, you do have king a, and then after here, your rook just slides to b5, and this knight's kind of out of the picture here. Maybe it comes to f4, coming to e6, but then here you trade, and then e6, but then you simply come here, and then here you can't really do that. You can't do anything with the knight, so you just do have to advance here. There's no tricks in this position. It's a simple draw. But that obviously wasn't played. Instead, we see queen g7 and rook c to b5, which is kind of a counterintuitive move. It doesn't accomplish anything. You didn't need to save it. Because if you take here and then you take, then your queen's still fine. So there was nothing here because rook g4 wasn't played or anything. Knight f3 attacking the queen. Just continuing the pressure from white, getting the knight involved. good move. Queen takes g7 is played now, and rook takes. But now, the difference here is the knight. It's no longer got d3 as a threat with the rook on c5, but rather d4, which is a killer move here. The reason why is because you don't have any safe square for this rook. It's just going to keep getting attacked. And let me show you. This is the important thing. And actually, the last player I highlighted in the game, sriramprasad. He's very well known for these sacrifices. He did quite a few in the World Championship against RoyalManiac. You'll see my sacrifice study come out in a little bit. I'm just looking for more games, more examples of beautiful sacrifices in Racing Kings. But after king to a5, knight to d4, rook to c5, knight e6, rook c to b5, you're winning as white. And how do you do it? It's the sriramprasad sacrifice. You sacrifice your major piece that you use to advance. Why? You sacrifice here, and you come here. The king's 2 ranks down. It's a very common sacrifice to see in Racing Kings that is missed by several players. But it's just beautiful coordination. And if you don't take, you come rook to b8, for example. Well, then see what the line is. King h7 does okay. So it is, but that's why it's knight to d8. So that's the winning idea there. It's beautiful piece coordination, but to see that this one more than the if it takes part was a tough part. Anyway, they just repeated and it was a draw, kind of a lackluster ending, but beautiful piece coordination there to offer a sriramprasad sacrifice. So that's what I wanted to highlight in this game. But beautiful series by these two. Game 4 is the first game of the series that I want to highlight of this one. This was probably the closest series that we're going to see for a little while. I'll just go with Gleb and Jacobo, but they're very strong players, both around equal strength. Jacobo was actually the higher seed here, and Gleb Momo has the white pieces. He played phenomenal in this one. They both play very similar lines too, so it was an exciting series to watch. King g3, knight takes f2, rook takes f2, king a3, king f4, rook b6, and knight d4. Deviation from main line, very tricky line, but can easily go wrong for either side. King to b4, king e5, bishop b4, all standard stuff. Queen h3 is actually theory here and the only drawing move for white, but obviously there's better ways to do it, since you do have rook g7 eventually, cutting off the only safe square for the rook here, or the queen here, if you play queen h8, for example. But queen h4 was played. Very odd move, doesn't really accomplish much because you're just attacking the bishop again, but putting your queen to a less valuable square. So king c5 is the best move here. Rook f6, rook c6, all good stuff. Rook e6, and rook to b7. There's actually only one move for white to try to even hang on here, and it's bishop b5. Going for bishop takes c6 and bishop takes b7. But it still obviously doesn't work with this bishop here. So, king f6 was played, and bishop d5. Here, king f6, if you just play king b6 as black, you're completely winning, and it's over, actually. King b6, because the rook can't come to g7, otherwise you're just coming here. And then when the rook comes up, you have this double up, and it's over. You have nothing. What do you do? Maybe queen to h8? It doesn't work out. You're just going to bring the queen and reinforce this. And this diagonal is not going to work in time because you just take. Yeah, nothing works here for white. But king b6 was indeed missed. It's a simple calculation now, and I'm surprised it was missed. But bishop d5 instead, just going for material. Rook to g7, bishop takes e6, rook takes b7, and rook to c7, queen h7. And then there is a killer move here. Queen a8, and you're losing this rook now. So I'm not sure where white exactly messed up. I believe it was queen h7. I believe you have to go rook b8 or something here, and then you're fine. But queen a8, bishop g2, and then here, black, you just take. The reason why you sacrifice the exchange is because you have king to b6 once more, and there's nothing white can do. If they save the bishop, you advance, and then you have this coordination here that you can't stop. If you don't save the bishop, if you take the bishop to get rid of this, you play to the 8th rank. You can't stop it in time. Just simple thing there. You might not take back as white here, but I'm not sure what you would do even because king to b6 is still a threat. It's just beautiful there that you can just take the rook. Missed, and you go bishop b2, pitting the knight for some reason. Not sure why, because that actually blunders a bishop. Bishop takes b2, rook takes h7, and bishop takes a8. Black is still fine here, but they have to find this incredible bishop sacrifice with bishop b3. So you can't take the knight because it would lose. Bishop's safeguarded by the knight, and the knight can't take. So you're kind of out of the options. I think there's a way that white can win or draw. Apparently not. It's already a mate sequence. I believe at lower depth, though. It was fine somehow. Anyway, it was missed. And king to d6 was actually played. And knight takes e6, completely fine. King d7, and bishop b8, a draw here. Knight to c4, and here's the thing: you did have to play bishop b7 here. Why? Because the knight cuts off here. You can't come here. If the knight comes here, it's still going to take 2 moves, and you're going to advance before then. And basically, the idea is, yeah, you come bishop a6. You're actually winning for white here. Wow. Oh, it's rook to f8. There was winning there, but knight to d6 was instead played. And it's a silly move because you do allow the king to come to c7, and it is a complete draw. Bishop to b7, and then yes, it's completely winning. Just a mate sequence you can't stop. Because where's the rook gonna go? Okay, you bring it over to f8, and then you just go here, and it's over. All right, so you bring it to a8. Oh, and you still go here. And there's no way you can stop that. 96 was so what happened here? Oh, rook h3. Silly blunder. I don't even know what the idea here. Why specifically to h3? Especially since you have the knights. Why not to h4 if you're gonna try something? But yeah, 96. Just reinforcing this, and now the rook's no longer here. If you bring the rook back, it's just the same idea, but now you're down a tempo. This was the first game of the series to break the even. So Blood Momo goes up 3-2 here. All right, the second game of the series I want to highlight. They eventually go 5-5. The score is now 6-5 in Blood Momo's favor. King to 3, knight f2. Basically the same line they've been playing all game here, but Jacobo has the white pieces instead. Rook takes c1 is an interesting option here instead of just going here because you give up the knight and potentially the bishop. But it's still a playable line. Just odd stuff from Club Mumble here, just straight from theory, but it ends up working out. King g5, queen a7, knight f3 is a very odd move. Not sure the idea of it, kind of outlandish, and allows this pin here, yes. Black is actually a little bit equal here now. Queen h4 obviously saves it, rook b to c6, knight to d4, bishop to b1, queen h8. All good stuff here. It's not necessarily straying from the slight white advantage from the odd opening, being up a knight, an active knight at that. King a5, rook b2. This is the first thing that strays. So this is actually the second time they played this line. I believe the first time was in game 10 and they also drew. But the white didn't realize that rook b2 here is just unstoppable. Because now you disconnect the rooks from the queen. Bishop e4, queen e8, and then queen c7, queen e7, queen c8, bishop c4, and bishop g2. All good stuff. White does have winning opportunities here, though. Black is just fighting on. Queen to f6 was played, and then queen c7. Crucial blunder. But queen c7 was played. And now, instead here of playing something to fight back, like here to fork and win a piece, or here to protect your queen, so the idea isn't a valid option anymore. Rook f5 was played. The queen's still not in a good position, and you can actually sacrifice your rook here. That's the idea behind this one, because now this rook isn't going to be able to come up anywhere for white. If you do just advance. And it's pinned still, so you can't even take here. And it's trouble for white. Bishop e4 was played instead, missing this beautiful idea, and this is why I wanted to highlight this game. You have king h6 here, another sriramprasad sacrifice, and it's a really tough one to find here. And I mean really tough because you have to see after here and takes. Guess what? You're completely running. The rook cannot take because then your rook's hanging. If you ignore the sacrifice, well, you got three major pieces that aren't doing anything. If you take the bishop again, you're losing a piece here. So you had to figure out a way to defend this. And if you come here, you're losing the piece. There is no way to save this piece. It's you're losing a rook is the whole thing here, and it's in a bad position. But if there is another line, obviously rook takes first, and the bishop is defending the rook. Well, you can take this rook back, and believe it or not, you're like, well, I can save this rook now by taking this bishop. But then you have the killer move here, knight to e7. And the king can advance, and white's winning. So beautiful sacrifice there if you were able to see that. But if not, it's okay. You play rook e5, and then you just shuffle, and it's a draw. Gleb almost still wins the series. But huge opportunity for Jacobo to win there, and you missed it. And it's sad that that series could have gone on and been more exciting. But obviously, the 12th game between these players, their minds are not as fresh. So sad to not see that opportunity. Number 6 here, IMakeManyMistakes, the reigning world champion. Even though he's not in the best form, I do want to highlight this game because it does show the potential of this form. He plays knight d4, which is not a line he's super familiar with. It's actually maybe homage to me because it's my line, and I appreciate him playing it, and he actually continued playing it multiple times in the series until he got a win. And this was the game that wins the series for him. A beautiful game, in fact. Knight takes f2, rook takes f2. Completely normal stuff. This was the first deviation from what you're supposed to play. Queen d5 was older theory, and it actually led to theoretical draw, but now it's actually better for black because of a couple of different things. Bishop b3 is one of them, which is interesting that it didn't work out for black. But you would like to actually just come here and transpose into like a king g3, knight takes f2, rook takes f2, knight d4 line, or come just rook g5. But it worked out here. Rook takes back, bishop c4, and rook h3. Now black's actually not very good here. White's slightly better. Knight f3, beautiful move here. It's very tough to spot this one because the idea here is to actually attack the knight while isolating this rook. Queen a5 was played. Queen f5, smart move. Rook h5, knight takes d2, and bishop b2, unpinning the knight. This move was a little bit unnecessary. And gives black opportunity. Queen takes h5, rook g5, but then queen h7 is not a good move here. I'm not sure what black actually was supposed to play. Not that it mattered much, because I make many mistakes. Just masterclass of an endgame here. Super obvious idea here with rook e7. And it's just so easy to play. It seems like the pieces for I make many mistakes are just flowing into their correct positions. And this was like what he played like in the last World Championship, where the pieces and their moves just seem to be all logical and easy to find. And it's because he created those opportunities for him. So great play for Mike Make Many Mistakes, and I'm glad to see him back in form. The chess player 453 has the black pieces against FS-Schach. So bishop symmetry going into knight, this new knight f3 line, knight c3 line, knight f3 line, where you take the knights instead. Knight g5, bishop takes g5, king h5, all fine stuff here for white and black. Bishop d3 transposes into an odd line. Rook b7, probably not the best move here because of this taking with advantage. Maybe you just want to play rook to b6 here because you do have this diagonal that you're holding on to. Sure, you do lose it with initiative, but I mean, it's a little bit more playable than rook to b7. Unfortunately, bishop takes c3 just loses the bishop. I'm not sure why you don't just take this bishop here. Obviously, you want to take that with initiative. And all fine stuff here. It's a draw. And here is an amazing move. I'll let you find it if you don't want to look at the right side of the screen. It is probably the most brilliant move I've seen in the Racing Kings World Championship so far, and it even stunned RoyalManiac, the top player in the world right now, rating-wise. It's Queen C8. Such a brilliant move. I mean, it's absolutely shocking, absolutely stunning here. The idea here is that if you do take the bishop, you're out of moves after King C7. You can't stop both B8 and D8. Absolutely brilliant queen sacrifice. Rook to G7 then, the best course of action. King A7 and Queen H2. And then here, Queen B8, King H6, and another brilliant sacrifice from the chess player. Queen to C7. The only move here is to take the draw with taking the queen. A beautiful queen sacrifice for the draw. Rook to G8. And after king takes B7, because the queen can't come up and get involved, it's a simple win. Absolutely beautiful stuff from the chess player there to find that and win the game. Alright, we're highlighting this player again now with the white pieces. He plays a perfect game here. It's a brilliant game, and I just want to show the masterclass of this player. That he's on par with the world champions in this series at least. Bishop G2 again, this newer variation where you play Bishop G2 is an interesting one. And then Rook takes D1, Queen D3, Bishop E6, or I mean Rook E6, and Bishop E2, all standard stuff here as far as I know for this line. Bishop takes D4, Knight takes D4, and actually you're supposed to play King takes D4 here. And then it's just a complete draw. If you take the Rook, for example, then the Queen takes back, and you're upper rank. It's supposedly a complete draw, and I'm sure if you know the endgame technique, it is a complete draw. But if you don't take here, the idea is that you just have this Queen holding on to the third rank, and you're up 2 ranks, even though you're down the Bishop. But Queen takes D4 was played, and King G3 is allowed. And suddenly, White has the advantage. King to C5, Bishop to E4 is a brilliant move. I mean, absolutely stunning. You do have to play Rook F2 to try to hold on here to stop King F4. I'm not sure why that square is so important, but that's what the computer says you have to do. Here it's just completely lost, and after you try to come here, this is where his masterclass comes into action. Obviously here the idea is here and just a quick win, but after the queen defends that, Queen G1 and just eliminating a piece, and now it's a rook and a bishop on equal ranks versus a queen. This white queen coming into hand here, pinning the rook, and eventually just being a sleeper. It's the only piece that can activate itself when it wants you. And after takes, it's just a simple win. Just purely brilliant play here from the chess player. The last game that I want to highlight in the series is actually between Ben634. He is the brother of Seth with all the sevens at the end. And he's an underdog in this tournament. He goes up 6-5, but FiredWolfZz closes his account is after. So I guess we take that as a resignation from the tournament. But Bishop D4 symmetry here with Knight F3 to try to stray from theory for FiredWolfZz. And Ben just dominates the game. King A3, Rook takes B2, Queen takes B2, King H5, Queen B6, Rook G6, Queen 7, Rook G5. I don't know why you just don't go Rook B6 here. It's kind of an obvious thing to stop the advance, but King A4 was played. Queen H4 is actually a very clever intermediate to attack this bishop. Bishop C6 was played instead, and it's already over. King G6, Rook B5, Queen E7, Knight A5, and then you just lose there, and then you have this attack here blocking off the B7 square, and it is just too easy of a win for Ben. And that's the last game I want to highlight because it was the biggest upset of this round. Ben634. Yes, Gleb Momo defeating Jacobo was a huge upset as well, but this was an incredible upset. I believe it was like 7th seed versus 26th seed, so huge upset there.